So there's been a number of initiatives that were included in this budget, and we were intrigued to see a childcare program that will commence at some point in future, and it will include children from 2.5 to 4 years of age, and of course at 4 years of age they enter the all-day kindergarten stream. So the government's number was that in this city, and we are in Toronto, people on average spend $17,000 per child for daycare. So you can imagine that that's an average. So some will be paying more, some are paying less. And if you happen to have 2 kids in daycare, it can be quite a burden. I have to assume that some of those people that are buying that daycare, and I say those people because my kids are older, I'm well past that, they're using their credit card to pay for that daycare, or they're paying for the daycare and having to use the credit card to buy groceries. Is what the government has done here just a shift of debt? In other words, saying to families and individuals, you don't have to incur debt for those things because we'll do it on your behalf, and is that necessarily a bad thing?
Most of the people that I know who do use daycare make the choice, are not actually incurring debt, but are 2-income households, and so are making the decision that I can make more working than if I stay at home, even with the daycare. Now, daycare is expensive. I'm not saying it's not, and there is an enormous value to encouraging more and more women into the workforce. It's a huge economic expander, but that logic was there 15 years ago, 14 years ago, 13 years ago. The fact that you're adding this investment and asking the rest of society to pay for the few who are making their choices about work and childcare, we just think this isn't the appropriate time. And if it was the #1 priority, why wasn't it the priority 15 years ago, 14, 13, 12, 11, go through the timing? The difficulty in life, as my father taught me very early on, is never the choice between good and bad. Any idiot can make that choice. The difficulty in life is the choice between good and good. No one says these are bad things.
Sure.
It's a question of how are we going to pay for them, and what are the alternatives that we can be spending dollars on. There's lots of good ideas in the budget, and at the right time, in the right context, absolutely.
Well, I mean, and it's interesting you say that. In the polling that we saw prior to the budget and the lead up to the budget, whereas typically and historically we would see when people are asked, what's on your mind? Like, not to rank how important is this to you, how important is this to you, what's the single biggest issue that you're dealing with right now? And usually we'd see healthcare being #1, the environment has been #1. Affordability and the cost of living has certainly percolated up to the top or near the top in the polling that we've seen. So when the budget was tabled, I think a lot of us, as we were listening to the minister read it, were saying, okay, so that's about affordability, that's about affordability. So they've challenged, or they've tried to tackle that. Is it fair to say your position is it's good to tackle those things, but when you can afford to do it?
Right. Affordability is also about affordability to government and to the taxpayer, because that adds and that accumulates on. We've seen the impact and the rising of input costs for our businesses, and at the end of the day, look, the vast majority of businesses in Ontario are small and medium-sized businesses. They're your neighbors. They're people who are seeking to generate some independence for their own family and opportunity for their community. And they have affordability issues on hydro, they have affordability issues on taxes, there's complexity added by red tape. And those are the people at the end of the day who are creating the majority of jobs to give people the opportunity to improve their status in life. I mean, you and I are perfect examples of this. Our parents came here with nothing and have been able to build, except a will to work hard, to save, to take care of their families, and have done well. And I'm one of those fortunate winners of the Ontario lottery, and the OLG has had nothing to do with it. I want that opportunity. Our members want that opportunity for everyone, but we can't ask some to disproportionately pay for it.
Fair enough. What's your view on, we